Experience the epic series that the world is watching and raving about. Catch up or relive the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones, now on HBO On Demand, and watch back-to-back episodes anytime on your schedule. This year, join the Legion of Followers and enjoy past seasons of Game of Thrones, plus the premiere of Season 4 on April 6th on HBO. Don't miss out. Sign up for HBO and get free access to HBO On Demand.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned in to MB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news. Months after the last Shantytown fire on Abaco, another makeshift community is engulfed in flames. The business community says government is clueless about value-added tax. Plus, why not check into Hibiscus Hotel? We've got those stories and so much more coming up tonight in Paige McCartney, and MB12 starts right now. Welcome once again to MB12. A 23-year-old man at the Sandbank in Treasure Key, Abaco, is assisting police in their investigation into an early morning fire that destroyed about 50 homes in that community. This morning, police on that island were alerted to the fire shortly before 1 a.m., responding with members of the Marsh Harbor Volunteer Fire Service and Treasure Key Crash and Fire Rescue. Reports are that the fire ripped through the wooden structures, leaving more than 100 people homeless. Officer in charge of the Northern Bahamas, Superintendent Noel Curry, says police are investigating the possibility that the fire was an accident.
What we believe is the fire was started in one of the homes involving, we believe, a kerosene lamp. And so our investigation is focused around that particular aspect of the fire.
The Department of Social Services is currently providing assistance as needed to the displaced. Police say no deaths or injuries were reported, and the fire was brought under control shortly before 3 this morning. The last fire that swept through in Abaco Shantytown left a woman and child dead on New Year's Eve. That fire also destroyed at least 90 structures and left hundreds of people homeless. In the wake of the New Year's Eve blaze, government offered assistance to displaced residents and appointed a Ministry of Works official to monitor shantytowns on Abaco to assist in preventing any further structures from being built contrary to proper regulations. Curry says police are now seeking to increase fire prevention education and awareness on Abaco, particularly in shantytown communities. Well, a man is dead after his vehicle collided with another late last night on Cat Island. According to police, the man was driving with 5 passengers in his white Ford Escape just south of New Bight when his SUV collided with a gray Ford Club wagon shortly after 11 p.m. These pictures are of the extensively damaged Ford Escape. Police say the driver was ejected from the SUV upon impact and taken to the local clinic along with the other passengers, 2 of whom were airlifted to Nassau for medical treatment. The driver, however, died at the clinic. Traffic officers from the capital traveled to that island today to conduct an investigation. Well, last month, a 56-year-old British man who was living in Canada was shot and killed in his mother's home on Grand Bahama. Now, a New Brunswick man who was also a victim of a crime back in 2010 is warning against travel to the Bahamas. According to the Global News, Mitchell Ninny was stabbed 7 times to the chest, back, and abdomen while visiting a friend in the Bahamas in 2010. Earlier this week, the article says the 3 men accused of stabbing Ninny were acquitted and found not guilty by a jury of 6-3. Upon learning of the acquittal, the Global News reports that Ninny is warning people of traveling to the Bahamas, saying anyone who goes there isn't immune to crime there. According to the article, Ninny says whether you feel like you're safe on the resort, as soon as you step off the resort, you're in a war zone. There are currently no travel advisories issued about the Bahamas by the Government of Canada. Earlier this week, the Prime Minister acknowledged that crime has reached a critical level, declaring that the government will not lose this war on crime. Well, the eyes of the world will be on the Bahamas in a matter of weeks, and if crime is not brought under control, it may have a major impact on the Bahamas' chance to host elite athletes again at the IAAF World Relays. Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, Dr. Daniel Johnson, tells NB12 that nothing has been finalized to host the World Relays in 2015, and that decision will depend heavily on the response the Bahamas receives surrounding the inaugural event set for May 24th and 25th.
With large-scale events, personal security and national security are always big issues. You're moving a lot of people into one space. You see what happens at Super Bowls and bowl games and basketball games and baseball games. It's an issue, and so we take that seriously. We are inviting the world to our doorsteps, and we must put our best foot forward. And I really appeal to people on this crime and violence scenario. This is a reason to cease and desist. If you look at the history of the Olympic movement, the Olympics was kind of seeded and founded out of the need for people to take a break from war.
Well, athletes from more than 50 countries will arrive in the Bahamas over the next several weeks. The main event will be broadcast in nearly 200 countries around the world. Johnson warned reporters last week that the press and publicity in the run-up to the event is crucial to the Bahamas' reputation.
The Minister of National Security is a part of our advisory team. The Commissioner has already set up camp here. The Defense Force has set up camp here. Our international partners have assisted us in what the rules and regulations are for that. And we feel comfortable that we will be fine.
The success of this event will help determine whether the Bahamas will host the event again next year.
In our bid process, we did bid for 2 events. We wanted the inaugural event and the next event. The next event is planned for next year, same time, around the same time, 2015. But we go back to the negotiating table after this event to negotiate the exact terms and conditions, memorandum of understanding, etc. And then we'll know exactly what that is going to take. After this event, we'll sit down at the table. I myself, the head of the IAAF, Secretary General there, and my cabinet colleagues, and we'll make a determination as to the feasibility of what we do next. But things are looking really good.
Johnson says he believes that sports will help reduce crime and violence in the country overall. Well, government's handling of the proposed implementation of value-added tax has been disappointing and a total disaster, according to business owners who say government has shown that it does not know what it is doing. Now that New Zealand VAT experts have suggested delaying the new tax, President and owner of SuperValue, Rupert Roberts, says he hopes government will heed the advice or else the Bahamas may be headed toward desolation. Christina McNeil has more.
We have a very serious thing. In the next 3 months, we have to get this right, or the Bahamas will become 700 desolate islands off of the Florida coast.
After months of consultation with government, some private sector groups are breathing a sigh of relief now that the government has engaged in consultation with VAT experts from one of the only countries that have implemented VAT successfully, New Zealand. For that, Robert says the Christie administration ought to be given some credit.
New Zealand invited the private sector in to do it, and what's happened, the New Zealanders came in and told them exactly what the private sector's been telling them for the past 12, 18 months, and it's been like talking to a blank wall. But suddenly, I think they grew ears for the New Zealanders.
Those experts last week told reporters that it would be difficult for government to meet the proposed start date of July 1st. Minister of State for Finance, Michael Halkitis, has confirmed that government will delay the implementation of VAT. Now, Roberts says this only confirms that government did not know what it was doing.
New Zealanders came in and told them exactly what the coalition said, told them exactly what the wholesalers said, told them exactly what the retail grocers said.
Roberts is not alone in his disappointment. President of the Carmichael Business League and spokesperson for the Coconut Grove Business League, Ethric Bowe, says he is not against taxation, but something is fundamentally wrong with the government's current methods of spending and borrowing.
I'm not against taxation, but we need to put our fiscal house in order first. We don't need to be having a tax alone discussion. We need to be talking about our whole economy. How do we restructure our whole economy for the benefit of the Bahamian people? Because we have to restructure our economy if our society is going to work. Something is wrong in how they are operating now, and they've got to fix that first. Don't come asking me for more money when you haven't explained what you did with the first set of money.
Business owners say whichever method of taxation is selected at the end of the day, the people ought to hold government accountable.
Even if it's VAT, the government has to go out and collect their back taxes, or that certainly wouldn't be fair to have 20% of the people paying 80% of the taxes. That wouldn't promote compliance. I don't know. It's their move. Let's see if they wake up. In the meantime, I'm going to keep believing in unicorns. Leprechauns, Bigfoot, and honest politicians.
Halkitis told the Nassau Guardian if that is introduced this year, it will not likely come on stream until the last quarter. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
And government's announcement that it will delay the implementation of VAT is being welcomed by the body that represents most local businesses. Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation CEO Edison Sumner said the group was never opposed to VAT in its totality, but rather the aggressive timeline in which the government expected to have it fully implemented. He said with this announcement, the chamber has gotten what it always wanted.
We had several different initiatives we were looking for. That we presented to the government, largely through the Coalition for Responsible Taxation. And a part of what we said then was that we thought that the timelines were too aggressive. We thought that the rate that was being applied was too high. And we thought that the whole approach of looking at the value-added tax was something that should have been reconsidered. When I say reconsidered, meaning let's look at it again and determine whether the value-added tax system was indeed the best system for the country.
And Sumner said where the country is now in its level of discussion on VAT and new taxation systems is where it should have been a year ago if the government wanted to keep its plan to implement VAT by July 1st. He said the next several months are critical as government makes its final decision.
The fact that they have announced that they are prepared to not implement it on July 1 and that the rate is not going to be 15%, is certainly welcome news to the business community. But our approach now is that let's still have a look at the entire fiscal infrastructure of the country. Let's not just look at value-added tax. Let's look at ways that we can improve on the revenue collections for the government. Let's look at ways we can cap spending so that we can assist the government as best as we can as a private sector organization to find ways to improve their own efficiencies in operation, right? So that at the end of the day, we want to see the government succeed.